Hail, hail! Good evening, folks, and welcome along to the Endless Celts Podcast. This is a Friday night show. I'm Anthony, and delighted to be joined by two brilliant contributors to the show tonight. First of all, our show regular, Mr. Dobbin, is in the house, live from Gracie's Bar. How are you, mate?
I'm all right, mate. Thanks very much. Busy week. Been running a bit like Davor Goldie all day. In my head in the clouds, but I all settled now.
It's good, mate. And listen, anyone that knows Davor will know he runs a bit like a green-arsed flea the full time that you see him. He's some man, like Ange himself, he never stops. And we're delighted to welcome back Mr. Jed Thomas as well to talk about all things Celtic. How you doing tonight, mate?
I'm fine, Anthony. Thank you. I take it you're looking for an old guy because we're going back a few years.
Oh, I told you, you're merely a fountain of knowledge. Hence why we always love to have you on the show. And as I said, folks, this is a rewind show tonight, just with the international break coming up. We thought maybe best take a chance to do one of our Champions League rewinds. We've been doing this throughout the season when time is allowed. Just with the fact that we were back in the tournament this year, thought maybe go back through the years, looking back at some of the highs and lows of our previous efforts in the Champions League. Jed, like you say, I'm gutted to say we've not had you on one of our most glorious campaigns. Although we'll try and pick out some of the high points throughout it. And for all the Scotland fans out there as well, we'll be touching on the news of Steve Clarke's new contract and looking ahead to Scotland's opening Euro 24 qualifier with Cyprus tomorrow at Hampden as well. So a packed show, and looking forward to get started. So we also want to thank our show sponsors, Sharna Clothing. Even although 30 seconds before we went on air, our old sponsors was still up on the display screen. Thanks to Stephen for being the all-seeing eye that he is in the background and taking that off. And Wally's in charge of the comments tonight as well. So get involved in the show. Welcome along, everybody, and just kind of type what you like, and Wally will be bringing up all the comments on the screen. So, Wally, we'll just get sort of straight into it. As I say, this is the last of the Strachan years in the Champions League, as it were, season 2008-9. We'll set the scene, as it were. Our previous two seasons under Gordon had given us great success, back-to-back, last 16. And we'd, against all odds, won the domestic championship the summer before. So we were going in to this European campaign with no qualifiers that we had to face, which was a massive boost throughout the summer. And of course, we were, feeling very positive about things. First time we'd won 3 league championships in a row since the years of Jock Stein, which is a fantastic achievement. And we were the pot 3 side in the group, drawn alongside, admittedly, Manchester United, who were probably at the peak of their form at the time, reigning European champions, and of course went on to the final in this tournament as well. But we were also drawn against some old foes in Villarreal, who had knocked us out the UEFA Cup a few years before, but we felt they were more than capable, especially at home, of getting a result. And against relative unknowns, Minnows from Denmark and FC Aalborg. So despite how it ended up, hopes were high going into the tournament but at the start.
Absolutely, mate. Like you said, the previous 2 seasons we had some positive campaigns. So you're looking at that group thinking that you definitely should be looking at the top 2. Although Villarreal, they were a very good side back then, but you still thought that, especially at home, we should be looking to get maximum points, even against Man United, strong as they were. But I was just looking back, and I know we'll touch on Strachan, but it was a decent squad he had. But compared to like the O'Neills and Rodgers and all the rest, the squad he had was probably our weakest, and what he got out of that team was miraculous, in my opinion. But a bit of sore one this season, which we'll touch on. But when you went into it, you were full of hope, especially with what we'd done the previous 2 seasons.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. And Jude, we've obviously touched on in previous rewind shows about how, and it's still a feat to this day, that we've never got off the mark with 3 points in the opening match of a Champions League group. And there's many reasons, obviously, for that, and a lot of the time it's because we're facing, very, perhaps what you deem superior opposition. But I think it's not an understatement to say that hopes were high going into this one, considering we were drawn against FC Aalborg at home in the opening night. We thought this was going to be, and even up until this point, we hadn't even taken a point in our opening fixture in a group campaign. But we did think this was a great chance to get off the mark, and I suppose we did. Only problem being it was 1 point we took, not 3, despite having a penalty, which was Barry Robson missed, and Scott Brown getting the ball in the net, and no VAR in those days, even though it was shown to be onside. It was it kind of almost, you could argue, set the tone for the rest of the group campaign with dropping points to the top 4 side in the opening match.
You're bang on, Anthony, and Wally made a good point as well. The squad that we had then, you got to remember when Strachan first came in, he was told basically to cut the wage bill. It was basically ready players. So all the big earners were starting to leave the club. And then when you look at the squad it had then, how many of the guys would actually get in Andy's team? I think 2, if you're lucky. But going back to that, the first opening game against Aalborg, yeah, on paper, we should have won. Missed the penalty, goal got chopped off for being offside. But am I right in saying, hopefully somebody will clarify this, was that our first time not to win at home in the Champions League for a couple of seasons?
Well, we dropped points. We lost to, well, didn't lose to, but we drew with Bayern Munich in the 2003-4 season. I think that was the first time we hadn't won. I'm just trying to think. Rest of the time, certainly in the group phase, we had won. Yeah, so you would argue, Bayern Munich, great side that they were. This was definitely, the biggest sort of you could argue shocking result that we'd had, certainly at home up until that point.
Yeah, I think as well. I prefer going into these Champions League games being the total underdogs, because I think we put pressure on ourselves when we all turned up there thinking, we should be putting this mob to bed. It doesn't work like that. And it wasn't a great campaign. Very unlucky when we're going to talk about the other matches in the group. If VAR was in place then, there'd been quite a few goals, especially the Man United game, they wouldn't have stood. But unfortunately, well, maybe I'm saying unfortunately, we're all fed up with VAR. So it was, we could only beat what was in front of us, and unfortunately, we didn't. It wasn't a great campaign. You're always looking to win your first home game, as we've done there as well. Fair enough, I know it was against Real Madrid, but so you're always a wee bit of a downer. You're always thinking, let's try and get something at home. So yeah, we were up against the wall after that, I feel.
Yeah, we definitely were, and that was one of the things that, for the sort of aftermath of that game, there was obviously a lot of pressure on Gordon, just with the fact that, we had dropped points to a relatively unknown side in the group at that point. And obviously going away to Villarreal afterwards was going to be a very tough match. And yet, just so as often as we did back then, we did rally. We did take the game to Villarreal that night over in Spain. We had numerous chances to get the ball in the net. We just couldn't get the score. But we're more than in the match, more than competitive. And unfortunately, it was a rather innocuous challenge for Paul Hartley that the ref decided was worthy of a free kick, which Villarreal scored from. It always, I don't know if you would say the same, but it felt around that time, especially at the back, we seemed to be quite prone to losing quite cheap goals. We always seemed to, any mistake that we made did always seem to get punished. You could argue it's maybe been a sort of similar fate with numerous Celtic sides and all guises. But it was a good performance in Spain, but unfortunately, yet again, came away with no points.
Yeah, Villarreal, they were a very good side back then. But I totally take your point. I mean, I really like McManus and Caldwell as a partnership, but they both had mistakes in them. We talk about Starfelt nowadays, how he's got that one calamity mistake in him that could lead to a goal. They were two centre halves that definitely had that in them. So yeah, I seen that. But I mean, this team was I think it was all based on hard work, wasn't it? There was technical brilliance in there as well, but the majority of the players, Robson's the first one that springs to mind. Even McDonald, the backline's Naylor, Hinkle, the rest of them. It was all hard work, non-stop, and that's what it's based on. We love to see that as a fan base, but yeah, after not winning that first game, it was a bit. I think the heads maybe went down a bit. We need to win that game. You need to win against the bottom seed at home. You've got to get all 3 points in that. It's an uphill battle for there. If you don't, especially with our away record in Europe. So this was an important game, and I can remember coming away feeling a bit hard done to because we worked hard and it just didn't go our way that night, unfortunately.
Well, that's the thing, Ollie, just with regards to the Aalborg game as well. When I was going through the notes for tonight's show, I didn't realise that was the first home tie at Celtic Park that didn't completely sell out. The official crowd at the time, they only gave it something like kind of 55,000. Yeah, they said there was a little bit of the top tier not quite full. Do you think there was maybe an element of the support as well that took the 3 points for granted that night?
Yeah, absolutely. I think looking at it, like you said, relatively minnows, especially the season before, the teams we beat to get through, Benfica and Shakhtar. I think we finished above the season before, so you're looking at that thinking that's a certainty. So yeah, I definitely think we maybe take it for granted. It's happened before; it'll happen again. The minnows, we should be putting them away and getting 3 points. And then doing what we can against the bigger seeds.
Well, that's definitely it. Jed, and some of the other sort of, little facts and figures about that game in Villarreal, as disappointing as the result was, Gordon Strachan faced even more criticism for what we would probably argue, when you look back at the quotes, is just a pretty honest assessment. 0 points after 2 games, with back-to-back games coming up against Manchester United, who were at that point European champions. He basically says, qualification for the last 16's going to be really tough, and he was absolutely slated for it, which, maybe it was just the mood around the club at the time. I'm not sure, but yeah, just going by some of the reaction to that, it just seemed, he always seemed to have a bit of a negative sort of relationship with the press anyway, but it seemed that he seemed to cop a lot of flack for those remarks. But on a lighter note, I did also see that Celtic and Villarreal fans, obviously with that good relationship that they'd built in 2004, had the supporters groups for both sides of the club together and raised £15,000 for a local children's charity. So although we were the losers on the park on the night, charity won in the end, so can never knock that.
No, I think Villarreal, all Celtic fans of a certain age will have a close affinity to them and know the Yellow Submarine. And if you look over now, they've actually there's a big supporters club in Villarreal now as well, and that's all came about from playing them a few years prior to that. And was it Requiem? Was it the Argentinian boy, number 10?
Riquelme.
Riquelme,
what a player,
quality he was. But look, that game that night as well, when the free kick was given away, I loved Boric, but I think he was at fault. I think it's Senna took the free kick, scored it, and probably 9 out of 10 times Boric should have saved it. It wasn't the top corner. He did maybe see it a wee bit late, so but we had our chances in that game. But with all these things, if we don't put our chances away, we ain't going to get a point. We're not going to win the game. We'll be 3 points. And that came back and brought us in the bum. We had 3 great chances in that game. So we did. And as it's still to this day, when you're playing in the Champions League at elite level, you have to put the chances away. It proved it this season in the Champions League. You have got to put the chance, or you've got to convert more of the chances than what you're scoring. You've got to, you've got to try and have a 40% strike rate. We're not even doing that, and we weren't doing it then. And that's been our downfall for years. We're creating chances, just not putting them away.
It's definitely something.
Sorry, Tony. See, just to touch on Strachan's comments after it, I loved that about Strachan, that he was honest in the press.
He was always on,
and he never done it in a way that was having a dig. Like I can like you said there about how it came, like it made the news, and obviously kind of a bit of backlash, and like that wasn't a dig at the club or the board or anything. It was just he was just honestly, and I think he always did it in a way that was very genuine, and I don't think there was ever any digging anybody out or the rest of it. I think he said it like it was, and I always liked that about Strachan.
I think with Strachan, well, Ange reminds me a little bit of Strachan as well. He doesn't like dealing with the press.
Yeah.
You know, he always feels they're going to try and put one over him. And he's a wee wily character. Even when he's on co-presenting and via sport and via play, whatever it's called, he's brilliant. You know, he's good at the put downs. I mean, if you think back, was it the BBC? I think Gordon can have a quick word. I mean, yeah, velocity. I mean, just absolutely
brilliant. Remember at Southampton as well when he was they were doing well in the league, and he's like, "You're thinking about Europe?" He says, "Aye, I mean the wife are going Tenerife, I think, in July." Aye.
It's just brilliant, and so I don't think the press liked dealing with him as well. So he was always guarded, hence why they was getting a lot of stick as well. Again, it goes on the now.
Yeah.
So, but Gordon Strachan, he was a rat of a wee player. I mean, I remember at a very young age playing for Aberdeen, and then he had a great career at Man United and then Leeds. But I tell you, what a job he done for us. And you know, he didn't have a great budget, especially if you think back to his very first European campaign. It was at Bratislava, very first game in Europe. Absolutely mauled away from home. Right. And we came back from that. So the guy's got character, and I actually like him when I see him on the TV now, because I do think he's quite an honest guy.
I thought it was great when in the cup game when Ange came over afterwards and it was like a coach's view. Strachan kind of said, "Oh, I love the way you do this and the movement and interchanging," and they two were kind of discussing it, and it was like mutual respect for them both. It was great to see.
Yeah,
that's it. Not just their coaching, but the fact that they've obviously, you know, they both have. Ange is the current occupier of it, but you know, Gordon's sat in that hot seat, you know, for 4 years, very successful at it. You know, they've kind of shared the experience there. They've been the man in the dugout at Celtic. It's not an easy job by any stretch of the imagination. Speaking of which, our campaign didn't get any easier after this, Jed, because after a narrow defeat in Spain, we then had the small matter going to Old Trafford, the theatre of dreams, or nightmares as it was for us on this night. Injury ravaged against the European champions, and although we narrowly lost 3-2 a couple of seasons beforehand, obviously the night where Naka scored the first of his 2 free kicks against United, it was a bit more of a no contest this time. Although, as you had previously mentioned, 2 of United's goals were very dubious, to say the least, about whether or not they were on. But all in all, it was as one-sided a fixture in terms of playing against for opposition-wise for Celtic as we'd come to experience that up to then in the Champions League.
Well, if you think back to Man United, where the top team in Europe at the time, they had Ronaldo was playing for them, Berbatov and Rooney. They were up Gary Neville. I mean, what a team they had. They were unbelievable. And you remember snippets of the game, and then so when I knew we were going to talk about it, I looked it up and I thought, "Oh, that's right. Remember that." Berbatov's 2 goals were offside, so they were. And then the third one, Rooney hit it for outside, put it in the bottom corner, just went along the ground. But again, Man United at the time were destroying teams, so their team was, again, when you think back who was playing then, my God, they wouldn't get like I say, hardly anyone would get a game in their team now. So they were punching well above their weight. But at the return game, we redeemed ourselves a little. So we did.
I would say so. Well, I think if I remember correctly, if memory serves me right, I'm pretty sure we watched the 3-0 game in the Grange together. I might be wrong, I'm sure, but there was definitely a game around that point. Obviously, my big sister Tracy. Say no more, Jed. But yeah, my big sister obviously ran the Grange back then, William, as you'll remember. I think this might have been a game that we watched, but yeah, it was one of those nights where you hope for the best, but when two offside goals are given, it's just not going to be your night.
Oh, absolutely, especially against that team, like Jed said, the names Berbatov and then they're taking players off, and it's the likes of Tevez and like Park Ji-sung, like, what a player he was coming on. Like these guys coming on as well. That team is arguably, I'd say, my generation anyway, it's arguably one of the best teams, starting 11s anyway for certain. I've seen. They were absolutely electric. I mean, you've got a front four of like Ronaldo, Rooney, Tevez, and Berbatov. Like that's not right. That shouldn't be allowed, actually. So, I mean, to come away and again feeling hard done because, like you said, 2 offside goals. I mean, it's not too. It's obviously disappointing and disheartening, but you're not coming away tearing your hair out like what the Aalborg game would have been, for example. You're looking to try and get something out of that, and if you don't, so be it. But you should be doing better elsewhere. And like Jed said, we were punching well above our weight with that team at the time. That team against that Man United side, if you match them up on paper, it's an absolute massacre. So, as always, I thought we did well. But like Jed says, I mean, the Rooney chance as well, it's not even a chance. And he scores, and we're not doing that. We're not doing that now, and we're only doing it then. It's quite demoralising when you're creating chances, like we've seen loads this season, creating loads and loads of chances, feeling like you should be putting teams away, and then the opposition gets 1 or 2, and they take their chances, and that's what you need to do at this level. But no shame in getting beat off that side. That's as good as it gets.
Yeah, they certainly were, and as Jed just mentioned there, the match night 4, we gave absolutely a great account of ourselves. It looked as though for a long period in the game that we were going to, repeat the heroics of 2006. If anyone remembers, one of my favourite goals ever for Celtic was Scott McDonald, a beautiful little chip over Ben Foster, and the United goals early on gave us a 1-0 lead, and a lead that we managed to hold on to up until the 87th minute when Ryan Giggs just managed to get on the back of a header and equalised to give it for the teams to finish 1-1. It was one of those nights where you just felt, on other campaigns, other years, we would have maybe, sneaked to 3 points, but it just felt like the momentum just wasn't with us. We weren't getting any of the breaks. Like I say, it was a very good performance, despite the fact, obviously, that, like you've said, we were up against a very strong United side. And as much as I'm a fan of Cristiano, he didn't endear himself too much to the Celtic support that night. I know Stephen often criticises the applauding of fantastic players in the opposition, but safe to say he didn't get any when he was leaving the pitch that night with, calling for Celtic players to be booked, going over far too easily. He certainly didn't get an applause or standing ovation when he left the pitch. That's for you, Willie. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, mate. No, absolutely. He's always got that in him, isn't he, Ronaldo? But I mean, every team's got that. I suppose Bruni was like that when he was younger too, and opposition teams hated him. But at the time, obviously Celtic Park was a fortress, and we felt like we could take anybody on. It didn't matter if you beat us 3 or 4-0 the week before. We still felt that we could do something in our own backyard, and it showed that night. McDonald's another one, very underrated for us. He was absolutely fantastic in these seasons, carried us at times. And as usual, hitting the back of the net for him. But I think it showed the resilience as well. It's easy to just give up when you think you're out, but for them to come with the stadium rocking and show up against the holders at the time, no shame in getting a draw there. It was fantastic. Again, kick in the teeth. It seems like we're saying the same thing about most of the games, but you feel like you're going to get the 3 points, and then that dagger to the heart with one of the greatest players that's ever graced the game, and Giggsy. Just got to hold your hands up sometimes.
Right, you do, and Jude, like you say, we were 5 minutes away from doing a double over reigning European champions. Obviously, the year before we'd managed to defeat AC Milan 2-1 at Celtic Park when they had the cup in their trophy room, and just moments away from doing the same against Man United. Even Alex Ferguson said Celtic were absolutely terrific that night. We probably actually played better that night than what we did the night we won with Naka's wonder goal and Boric's penalty save. But like you say, sometimes it's just not your night.
No, if you think a couple of things sprang out to that game, even when you UEFA show Champions League Celtic, they always show that goal from McDonald. I mean, like you say, it was fantastic. Lobbed it over if Ben Foster. And I'm sure Ben Foster, when he talks about atmospheres, about grounds, I'm sure it was that game where he says nothing is ever compared to that. He says it was absolutely frightening. He was found it very, very difficult to concentrate. And that's what Celtic Park can do. And then, like you said, Ryan Giggs with a header, Ronaldo hit the shot, keeper saved it and it came out and he headed it in. Like I say, with 5 minutes to go, it could have been another great story. And Alex Ferguson, like you said, was very complimentary of Celtic after that night. But I think always felt Ferguson has been complimentary Celtic through the years. But it was so near yet so far again. Glorious failure, whatever you want to call it. We're going to have it. We're going to see it again. That's the problem. But let's not kid ourselves. As the guys have been putting up the comment, we always seem to be playing. We get people in the group who are the European champions, and what can you do? What can you do?
A bit like Scotland, they always draw Brazil.
Yeah. But can I say, you mentioned Ronaldo and that about him diving. I know Stephen has a bee in the bonnet about players getting clapped off. I've never been able to take to Ronaldo because from a very, very young age, he was diving all the time. And I didn't get that impression with Messi. They're always comparing Messi and Ronaldo. And yes, when Messi played for Barcelona or when Xavi or that got substituted, they all got a round of applause. Now, personally, I don't see a problem with that because you're witnessing absolute greatness in these players. Ronaldo, no win because personally, I can't take him. I always felt he was a cheat. So that put me off Ronaldo. So if people say to me, who's the greatest ever player, I'll always say Messi. Because I just felt Ronaldo was diving all the time.
Well, that's the thing is it's a debate we often have with him. Stephen just says his view we shouldn't do it at all. As I say, it's not something that we just do willy-nilly, and I think it's a sign of a big club when their supporters recognise the greatness of an opposition team. Like you say, it's not going to be there's never going to be a time when Neymar, despite all his ability, will ever get applauded at Celtic Park. But you look back to the likes of last year when Luka Modric came off, for example, who's an absolutely terrific player. That's when you got to say that's just the way you do it. I think I've got no issue with greatness, recognising greatness. To be honest, here's just hoping we've got a few better results to have it. And anyway, there he goes again. You would have thought that he's the rain would have calmed him down a wee bit, but no, he's still got that bitterness in him. Let it go, Stephen. Let it
Tony,
go.
a wee funny story. I don't know if any of the guys that's watching will remember this. Kalina, the Italian referee, the bald guy. I'm sure when we played, it was a European game, and the announcer the referee was, and they got a round of applause. And you just say, I mean, that was, so we're taking it for one, we're cutting players off, but we actually gave the referee a round of applause before even the game started. That was how much high esteem this guy was held by.
That's right. I'm sure it was one of the early ones. It was one of the O'Neill years. I think it might have been. I think it might have been Bayern Munich actually.
No, it's coming. I think it was Valencia when we get beaten penalties.
Oh, you could be right. You'd be right, Jed.
That's what I think it was. So it was. But I just when we're saying about clapping people off about first time I've heard a referee getting applauded at Celtic.
Absolutely. But strange times indeed. Strange times. But Wally, so after, as I say, drawn with United at home, and Aalborg and Villarreal actually drew 2 each in that game. So it was actually a campaign where there was a lot of draws. Even though United won the group with 10 points, they only won 2 games. They were undefeated. There was 4 draws in it. It was lots of. I think it's one of the. Couldn't tell you this for certain, but it's definitely one of the highest amount of draws in a group stage in Champions League history, according to Celtic Wiki, anyway. And but yeah, so after that we thought, well, we've got point on the board. Let's go and do Aalborg in match night 5 and try and see if we can get ourselves a UEFA Cup place. Now, things were going relatively swimmingly. Up until the last 20 minutes, Barry Robson, with a great header, had put us 1-0 up. Our first goal away from home in 6 games in the Champions League. And we were thinking, right, let's just cut out the nonsense. We drew with them at home. It was a bad night at the office. Business, normal service is being restored here. And then it just went hopelessly wrong. We had, I think it was Kaker, I think I've got here, equalised. And then Gary Caldwell and Glenn Loovens, who up until then, believe it or not, had been actually having quite a decent game, had an absolutely horrific moment, which ended up with Gary Caldwell putting the ball in his own net. So far from being UEFA Cup favourites, we were completely out of Europe after 5 games only in the Champions League. So this is, and as I say, at the time, we've obviously had bigger defeats since then. We've obviously had times where we've went out 4th place before this as well. But could you argue that this is our worst ever result in the Champions League?
Certainly in the group stages, I would agree with that. I reckon we've had much worse in the qualifiers, but in regards to the group stages, I wouldn't disagree with that. No, I definitely wouldn't agree with that. Disagree with that. Like you say, got off to a great start. Barry Robson scored a great goal. I loved Barry Robson when he was at the club, by the way. Another one that wasn't. He definitely had ability, but he wasn't the most blessed with ability. But what he lacked in ability, he gave in work rate, and he was absolutely superb for us at the time. I got off to a good start. Again, you're thinking, here we go, and then all of a sudden, as Celtic have done many times before, sort of collapse and are kind of the victims of their own downfall sometimes. And that was that. Again, another disappointing result. As much as we've had some amazing results in the Champions League, we've had some very, very disappointing ones as well. And I mean, this away hoodoo that we've had for however long happened again against Minnows, like we said. Not a great, a very disappointing Champions League campaign, and I think that game summed the whole campaign up, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think so, and I think probably the reason why I suggest that, Jed, is obviously, like Wally says, we had the defeat in the qualifiers to Basel, obviously in the year that we ended up on the Seville run, but they went on to prove what a good side they were. You know, I think they made the last 16 that year, and you know they beat the likes of Liverpool and whatnot in the group stages. Obviously, when we first started getting drawn against Shakhtar Donetsk, they were a relatively unknown side as well, but obviously they were very well financed, and went on to have some decent success themselves. But obviously in Europe you have the likes of Anderlecht and Rosenborg, big teams in their own rights. But we've managed to have some good nights against them as well as some defeats as well. But for me, the Aalborg game, I don't even know if they've ever been in the Champions League since. They didn't impress to any great. Celtic were in terms of the performance, were the better team at home, and in this game, it just horrific moments cost us dearly. To lose in that manner and to be out completely Europe, not even having anything to play for in match night 6, which is something would never happened to us before. It was just a bitter pill to swallow.
I mean, I think it was a good question you asked. Was it our worst result? And I agree with Wally 100%. The Champions League, probably yes, but not when you look at some of the European. I mean, one that springs out to me, the Neuchâtel Xamax from a long time ago. That, to me, in my opinion, was their worst ever European
Who was
result.
the team what was Rodgers' first game? It was like the equivalent of Faltus United. Who was that again?
Oh no, it was Gibraltar. It was Red Imps. Was it Red Imps?
Red Imps. That was
the Lincoln Red Imps.
That was a shocker as well, to be fair.
Yeah. I was on holiday then, so I was fine. I was out of the country, so I was fine. But just especially at the Scandinavian teams, you always look to think, we can maybe pick something up over there, and we haven't done great. Like you say, Rosenborg, and then same with the Europa League there as well. But historically, we don't do well over there, and on paper we should. We've got a bigger budget in them, but we just seem it's a mental block when we go over. So, yeah, definitely think that was our worst result in the Champions League, even though it wasn't our worst points total in the Champions League. I do think because we were expecting, we're looking to say, okay, definitely 6 points there, home and away against them. If we could beat Villarreal, there's 9 points, we've got a chance. We didn't. That was the problem. We didn't do it. And so, yeah, that definitely was our worst result in the Champions League.
Coming straight back to you, Jed, as I say, after match night 5, as I say, the final match, the home tie against Villarreal, which had been billed at the start of the campaign as the sort of, that was going to be judgment night, who was going to be joining Man United in the last 16, ended up being a bit of a proverbial damp squib, almost literally, because the rain was horrific that night. But it ended up being a relatively, good nature, certainly in the stands anyway, good natured game between both sets of fans. And as terms of the results go, a pretty comfortable night for Celtic on the pitch. Sean Maloney got things underway with a headed goal, believe it or not, despite the fact he was probably the smallest lad on the pitch. He got pitched in with a header after 15 minutes, and right on the stroke of half time, a lovely low drill for Aidan McGeady into the far corner gave us a 2-0 lead, and that was pretty much that. Villarreal, put in a few tasty challenges in the second half, but apart from that, there wasn't much threatening in front of goal. So in terms of course, financially, a few quid in the pot for getting a win in the group, and if nothing else, ended a poor campaign on a high note.
Yeah, I say 2-0. I'm trying to think that game. Was there any? Did Villarreal have many chances? I can't remember if they had many chances in that game.
No, certainly not. But when you look at the highlights package on YouTube, they don't really show you much.
I don't think they did. And yeah, just let's get the money in the bank and we'll move on. But at least we won the game. That's all. We won the game. And again, there was a big support there that night. There was a big support, even though it was again the same there. Champions League, our last campaign, the final game was a dead rubber. That was the exact same.
Yeah, so as Tommy would say, we're there and we're always there, William. As I say, a poor campaign on a high note. I'll put it to the two. I'll come to yourself first, Wally. We were talking earlier about there's about parts of this campaign that we're talking about kind of mirrors this season in terms of not getting the breaks, not taking our chances in front of goal. Could we maybe say that perhaps to put a positive spin on it, that this team that we're discussing just now, Gordon's team, they were coming to the end of their cycle. 4 years. Stephen sort of suggested in the comments that perhaps Gordon stayed a year too late, and that the team was kind of coming to its natural end. Perhaps a positive we can take from some of the disappointments for this year's campaign is that it's put some solid foundations in place, and if Kyogo or Giakoumakis put the ball in the net a few more times this year, perhaps the group would have looked a hell of a lot different. But in terms of we've put some decent performances this year. It's something that we can hope to build on next season.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a fair point about that side and Strachan's side. And I don't think that's going to be a problem under Ange. I think he's shown it already in his short time that he's been with us that he's constantly buying, recycling and rejuvenating the team and looking to improve. And I don't think that's ever going to be an issue under Ange. I always said that bang on about it all the time, Alex Ferguson was the best at it, and I always think that 10 in a row season was exactly that. We were our own success brought the failure that season, if you like. We were the likes of Edward and Christie's and all the rest of them were turning up and getting a game every week, and there was nobody challenging. That team we shouldn't have been resting on our laurels and thinking, well, we're winning everything domestically, we're winning treble after treble. We'll just keep going. It should have been new guys in, recycling, selling on, bringing in competition, and I think that's why we failed that season. And it's a fair point about Strachan's last season there. Although, I mean, the side we do say that it's a weak side. I mean, Maloney and McGarry, that's no bad on the wings, is it? And it's the Glasgow Celtic way, a bit of flair, pace, and all that in the wings. So, yeah, but it was a good way to end the campaign. I mean, it was pretty horrific, a lot of misery throughout the campaign. So it was nice to finish it on a high with a win. Just unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be that season. But yeah, no, it's a good point, and I really think that Ange's style and his forward thinking, just to bring it back to this season, and I might be sitting here in a year's time and it's been another disappointing Champions League campaign. But I just think that with this side that he's building, you've seen the difference already, and this year compared to even the start, even 3-4 months ago, the team's just constantly improving. Players are constantly improving, and I think if we keep a nucleus of this first 11, and he's always looking to add more, as long as we're more clinical, I can't see why we can't do some damage in the Champions League next season.
I would second that, and certainly agree with you there. And here's hoping that comes to fruition. But what about yourself, Jed? Do you see any sort of similarities between both campaigns? And all going well, fingers crossed. We'll have another crack at it next year. What would your aims be for the boys?
Well, the good thing is we're going to win the league this year. If memory serves right, we didn't win. We went after the Champions League in 2008. We lost the league. I think we lost it for the next 2-3 years after that. But so this year we're going to do it. I mentioned earlier about Strachan's squad, and in my opinion, the only players that would get into the current squad are Boric, Scott Brown, and Nakamura. I don't think Maloney, I don't think McGeady, Hartley, Barry Robson, Barry Robson never shirked a tackle. He went through players, but I don't think they would get in Ange's team. But when you look, if you're saying moving on for the current squad and the Champions League, when we played Real Madrid, when we got beat the 5-1 over in Madrid, I was looking this up again. I couldn't believe it. We had 14 shots, 8 in target against them. And see, I know the one thing I remember about that game was when we were getting beat 5-0, we just kept attacking. I'm saying, would you just stop it? We're going to get absolutely a doing here. And I was screaming at the telly for us to calm down. But that's Ange's way. So yeah, I do think we're going to learn from it. We're definitely going to win the league. We're going to strengthen again in the summer. We're going to lose players, but we're also going to bring players in. Ange proves he's got an eye for a player. So I'm really looking forward to the campaign next year. That's why I don't think Ange is going to go, because I think he's got unfinished business. It would be the Champions League. I think this time next year, yes, it could be looking at leaving, but I just think he's got unfinished business and bring it on. We never stop.
It's mad to think that see in that Strachan's team, if we lost in a window 2 players of the calibre of Juranovic and Giakoumakis, you would have been screaming and tearing your hair out. Where this squad and the team he's building, it's not even, you forget about them 3 weeks later. It's absolutely mad.
Let's be honest, if you think back, Johnson's come in, right? Is he better going up attacking than Juranovic? No. Is a better defender? Yes, I think he is.
Yeah, I think we needed that.
He's more positional sense. And he's got that hard man about. He's not going to shirk anything. If he sees one of his fellow players in trouble, he's going to go and stick up for them. That's the ice hockey background in him. I think he is a fantastic signing for us.
Yeah.
So
totally agree.
And that's him only been here 3 months. What's he going to be like next season?
Yep.
When he starts,
and he's another one. When you see all the media and all the rest of it as well, he's another one that's totally bought into Celtic. You can tell he's loving it. I think he's been an absolutely fantastic addition. If you think that the Croatian national right back who just finished third in that recent World Cup is away and he's a miss, and he's not. It's not. If anything, you would argue it as an improvement. I agree. I think that Juranovic was much better technically going forward, and I think Juranovic could have played centre mid or anywhere in the park. I thought he was that good technically, but he was, especially in Europe. I think I know John was always going after him, but I definitely think on the counter, especially, he looked really vulnerable coming back the way, and I think he did make a few mistakes. I definitely don't see that in Johnson. Johnson really reminds me, I'm not saying he's anywhere near as good as Kieran Tierney. Really reminds me of Kieran Tierney. Doesn't he shuck a tackle, like you say? He gives everything 100%. He's got an engine that he could run up and down there all day. And he will get forward and does get balls in the box. He's got his goal the other week there. I just think he's been a fantastic addition.
Yeah, definitely.
He certainly has.
We're looking good for next season, the Champions League.
Well, I'm loving the optimism, boys. Absolutely loving it. As I said, the final group standings for the group that season, as I say, unfortunately, so Man United topped the group, which wasn't a surprise. 10 points is not a bad return, but it's just as we were saying earlier, I was pretty shocked looking back that it was only two wins and 4 draws gave them the 10 points. Villarreal went through to the last 16 with 9 points. Aalborg went home with 6, and Celtic rock bottom with 5. So, as I say, in terms of the points total, not a campaign we look back on with too much fondness. And it almost kind of set the tone for the rest of the season, Wally, because, even though at that point we went into the winter break 7 points clear after a fantastic win at Ibrox, great goal by Scott McDonald. The sort of the wheels just came off on that campaign. We blew the 7-point lead. We then got back to a little lead with 2 games to go. All we had to do to clinch 4 in a row was beat Hearts and beat Hibs in the last 2 games, and we dropped points to both, and the rest was history. Rangers went on to win the next few league titles, and we didn't actually won another one until 2012 when a certain Mr. Lennon was in the dugout at his first term. But that campaign, the poor European campaign, the loss of the league, also spelt the end for Gordon Strachan. 4 years in charge at the club, and although it ended on not the best note, shall we say, I think when you look at his achievements over the 4 years, as I say, 3 league titles, 2 League Cups and a Scottish Cup in terms of a domestic trophy haul, but that's only half the story. He's 3 Champions League campaigns, still the only Celtic manager in the Champions League era to achieve that, to do 3 in a row, back-to-back, last 16 participation, obviously, as we've covered in other rewind shows. First Celtic manager since Jock Stein to win 3 domestic titles. Again, that's a pretty decent company to be in. And of course, as well, he was not only 2 last 16 participations with him, we also won the domestic title in the same season as well. Obviously, Rangers will claim that rightly claim that they were the first team to ever reach the last 16. but they then finished third in a 2-horse race at home. So not worth shouting about if you ask me. Also the easiest group in Champions League history. Having said that, for Gordon to have achieved all that, he followed Martin O'Neill. He stepped into the shoes, which, was a mammoth task in itself. But he achieved all that, despite the fact, as we've said there, with a inferior team in terms of the names of the players, and of course the resources available to him in terms of transfer budgets and whatnot. Perhaps the football wasn't as free flowing and scintillating as we've became used to, but there's no doubts his achievements stand up as much as any other Celtic manager, and his place in the club's history is more than secure.
Absolutely, I don't understand why there's a large number of the Celtic support that don't rank him highly for what he achieved. Like we said, certainly, try to think. Certainly, my generation, it's one of the weaker squads we've had. Following Martin O'Neill, like all the guys and girls have been saying in the comments as well, had to half the wage bill, totally restart again after all the success Martin O'Neill had. And I mean, his legendary status, it's not easy to come in. I think what's his famous quote where he says, like, I don't know this, I've never lived this, I'm an outsider when it comes to Celtic. Most people come in, they've had it in their blood or they've been here before. But by God, he's definitely wrote his Celtic folklore. I think he's done just as good a job as a lot of these guys. A proper motivator. Like I said, the team that he had was it's just hard work. There was some technical ability in there, and I mean he had Shinsuke Nakamura, which was a bit of magic and all the technical ability you need. But yeah, I couldn't laud any more praise on Strachan. I loved him when he's here. I loved his honesty. I loved him when he went on to Scotland. I don't think he could have done a much better job than he did with the team he had and the situation that he was in. And as much as Martin O'Neill's a hero and there's predecessors and people after him, Lennon's and Rodgers and even Ange now, and none of them have made a Champions League last 16, and they've had far, far stronger squads. And we're obviously always pretty successful domestically, and us as fans crave for us to go deep in these Champions League and mix it with the best. And Gordon Strachan did it, and I don't think that should be sniffed at. I think he done a miraculous job when he was at the club, to be honest with you. And it kind of irks me a wee bit that he doesn't get mentioned, at least in the same breath as some of the other managers that have went before and after.
I would totally agree with all of that, Wally. And Jed, you mentioned earlier about his playing career and obviously the tremendous success he had against Celtic, when he was wearing the red of Aberdeen. Do you think perhaps that combination, perhaps with his, very dry sense of humour, combined with the fact that he simply wasn't Martin O'Neill, who, if you had to design the textbook archetypal, what we would want from a Celtic manager, it'd be a handsome, smooth-talking Irishman, I suppose. Gordon's, definitely not that, to say the least. But I think the majority of the support have definitely took to him in the end, and definitely the fact that he's got nothing but good to say about the club now when he's in the media and situations like that. He's definitely one of us now, and he's one of the first to jump to our defence when we come under attack from the other corners of the media.
It's funny that it seems to be not Celtic-minded ex-players, ex-managers stick up for us more in the press. When you've got Charlie Nicholas, etc., an absolute walloper of a guy.
Andy Walker.
Aye. But I remember it was my first family holiday to Florida in 2005, and obviously even over there you heard that Martin O'Neill was leaving because his wife.
Yeah.
But it was announced straight away Gordon Strachan would be coming in. And I was actually really pleased at Strachan coming in. If I'm wrong with that, but I'm positive that's what happened. That Strachan was in right away, and I remember coming back home. What you guys weren't, or when they had Strachan, where I knew when he wouldn't suffer full gladly. I mean, he was an ankle biter of a player. He was a great player for Aberdeen. I think the older generation probably didn't like him because he was such a good player for Aberdeen, and he used to put us to the sword in their late 80s when Ferguson was the manager. And he went on, like I said earlier, had a great career at Man United, and then he won the Premier League and with Leeds in his late 30s. He was a phenomenal player, and he worked wonders with the budget. His criteria was to get the big earners, the Hartsons, the Suttons off the wage bill, and he done that. And one player he did bring in, we've all had the goals that he scored, Nakamura. So we're forever eternally grateful for him signing that. We seem to do okay with Japanese players. I don't know what it is, but I remember at the time when we signed Kyogo, I remember saying if it could be half the player that Nakamura was, but on for a winner, and my God, he's probably been a better signing than Nakamura. So it was, but
paid a lot of money for Bruni as well at the time.
Yeah, it's 4.4 million. And because it was either him or Thompson would be going to be coming in. Bruni obviously was the Rangers fan. They thought he was going to go there, but yeah, Strachan was. I thought it was fantastic for the club. Considering what he had to deal with finance wise. I mean, you got to mind Martin O'Neill. Yeah, spot on, Monty. I mean, he came in, Martin O'Neill, and what is Sutton, Lennon, and Hartson, £6 million each. You imagine if Ange had to go and sign 3 players and out, £6 million each. That's come back 2003, 2002. Yeah. We're spending £6 million in players. I mean, even to today's standard, that's a lot of money for us. That's what we're doing. We backed the manager then, and Strachan, unfortunately, didn't get the backing that O'Neill got. But by God, he worked wonders. And every Celtic fan should be eternal grateful. I think with Celtic fans as well, we could be. I mean, I've just slagged Charlie Nicholas, so I'm just as bad. But when you see what Fergus McCann done for the club, and when he came to put the flag out, he got booed and things like that. If it wasn't for that, man, we wouldn't have a club.
Yep.
And that's how it does well me. You've got guys who are meant to be dying the wheel, Charlie Nicholas, and at every opportunity to put us down. Andy Walker. I can't believe in the centenary that I was jumping up and down like a daft to supporting this guy. I just can't. I can't be bothered with him anymore. Yeah, you've got Sutton, Hartson, Strachan, who stick up for us all the time. So you don't need to be a Celtic. You don't need to be a Celtic fan to be a Celtic great. And it's proved it with Steen, Dalglish, Brown, McGrain, Callum McGregor, Greg Taylor. They're not Celtic minded, but they've all been fantastic for the club.
Yep. They certainly have. And long may that those, like you say, non-Celtic minded guys continue to be greats in the green and white and in the dugout as well. In terms of the sort of Celtic content, boys, that sort of brings it to the end. But we thought with the fact just that it's the international break, of course, big weekend tomorrow for the national team, Wally. So I'm definitely coming straight to you for this one. Scotland drawn in Group A of the Euro qualifiers alongside Cyprus, Georgia, Norway, and of course the mighty Spaniards. A very tough group. I actually think it's one of in terms of every pot, we've got the highest seeding team for every pot. So that's our rewards for winning the Nations League group. A real group of death. And, in terms of the entire team, you would argue Scotland perhaps superior to Norway. But of course, the Vikings, of course, have the human cheat code that is Erling Haaland. So I do have a sneaky suspicion that it might all come down to that night again at Hampden against Norway in November. But it could be quite a campaign, this. But we got off first game tomorrow, Hampden, 2:00 kickoff at home to the Cypriots. on the news, dropped today that Steve Clarke, the man who led us to our first major tournament in over 20 years, has signed a new contract to 2026. So what's your thoughts on that, and what's your sort of thoughts for the game tomorrow, and of course for the campaign as a whole?
Yeah, it's all positive, isn't it? I mean, we've been in the doldrums for however long, and I mean, Steve Clarke's been the man at the helm and brought us back to the forefront, winning the this Nations League group. But whenever it gets drawn for next year, it's going to be three of the biggest ranked teams in the world we're going to be playing against. I mean, it's magic to think that when you think back to when Bertie Vogts was in charge and we were Stevie Crawford and Kevin Kyle up front. It doesn't bear worth thinking about.
Crowds of about 7,000-8,000 at Hampden.
Yeah,
it was dark times.
And now it's just there's a bit of buzz about this again, and I couldn't be more pleased that he signed a new deal. Really looking forward to this campaign. Going to the game tomorrow. I've got tickets for all the games this year, so really looking forward to it. I'll have the kilt on. The wife's got the tartan trews, and we're getting the early train through a few beers, so a wee day out. Looking forward to it, and I can't see anything but a positive result. And hopefully, we talked about how Strachan had his side. It's a hard-working side, and there's not much technical brilliance in there, but they'll work hard and they'll get results, and that's exactly what Steve Clarke's done for this side. And I'm hoping very, very positive that this campaign's going to be another successful one. I'm really, really looking forward to it. I've seen Haaland's pulled out the team for the Norway team for this couple of games, so hopefully they drop points elsewhere and give us a wee boost. But yeah, looking forward. Hoping for a big win tomorrow, and then I bring on the Spaniards on Tuesday. It's Cal Max. It's Cal Max's 50th cap tomorrow as well, by the way. I seen Andy Robertson.
The rumour is he's going to be captain tomorrow.
I seen Andy Robertson's presser, and he was waxing lyrical about him and saying that obviously he came up through the youth team. He said he's known Cal Max since he was 7-year-old. Come up through the youth film and knows his family. He says, and honestly, if you get a chance, have a look at the interview with Robertson, because he's absolutely waxing lyrical about him. And I wouldn't be surprised, Jed, if he got given the captain's armband. Robertson talks about how, as the national team captain, it's great to have guys like him in, because he's another leader in the dressing room. And for me, he's arguably our best player. Scotland, I mean, and possibly Celtic. He's just absolutely fantastic. And Robertson talks about how he's the perfect role model for kids nowadays as well. And he is. You never see him in any media press with bad press. He's not on the social medias putting out pictures. And we talked about him last week, where how the Rangers players were mouthing off before the semi-final, and he was as humble as they come and said, listen, we do our talking in the park, we concentrate. Just an absolute brilliant role model. So hopefully he can cap it off with a goal for us tomorrow for Scotland and set us on our way for the rest of the campaign. Looking forward to it.
It's certainly, here's hoping, as I said, as much as we enjoyed the sort of almost the home Euros in 2020, obviously the world, or 2021 even, the world was still getting back to some kind of normality. The stadiums obviously weren't full, certainly in the group stages, but it gave us a taster of what it was like. I think it'd be absolutely brilliant to get to the tournament in Germany. I think everyone remembers the World Cup from there in 2006 was a great tournament. Hopefully the Euros next year will be something similar, and hopefully Scotland will be there. I'm going along like yourself, William, going tomorrow, although it's going to be a far drier affair than it seems what you and Susan will be up to. I'm taking the car. Me and the wee boy are at Hampden tomorrow. So, looking forward to that as well. Fingers crossed for a good result. And over yourself, Jed, are you going to see the match tomorrow? What's your thoughts as well about Steve Clarke's new deal and Scotland's chances of qualifying?
Well, like Wally, I'll have a kilt on tomorrow, but for a different reason. I'm going to a wedding.
Oh,
so I won't see the game. I'm not going to kid on Scotland. I'm a Celtic man first and foremost. So I've never... Yeah, I'll watch Scotland if they're playing. I'm upset if they get beat. Do I take it to heart? No, I don't. Whereas Celtic get beat, I take it to heart. However, I do think he deserved his new contract. Without a doubt, He's went in there. He worked wonders at Kilmarnock. He's went on and done. He's worked great with Scotland. He's more structure about him. He's got better organisation skills. And to be honest, if you're going to go down the line of a Scotsman managing the national team, who else is available?
No.
Who would you have? David Moyes, Alex Neil? I don't know. So I think he has deserved his new contract. And good luck. Like you say, when we're playing Norway, I just hope maybe Haaland gets locked in the toilet or something like that, because that guy is absolute quality. How do you stop him? I don't know. Who's ever they're going to be the centre halves that game, they're not going to sleep the night before.
No.
Because the guy is phenomenal.
Yeah.
So I think
really
I personally think we've got a better chance of beating Spain than beating Norway.
Aye. You know what's mad as well? See how come when Scott, like Wales' superstar is Gareth Bale, unbelievable player, ping the ball in the top corner for anywhere. Norway's superstar is probably the best striker in world football now. Why is our superstars always fucking a left back? How can it not be a world class forward that can just change a game in an instant?
What's up with London Dykes like?
I don't see him pinging one in for 40 yards, to be fair. But what I like about Clark as well, he's never, see when we beat Denmark, who got to the semis of the Euros just before it, just 6 months prior or whatever. But he wasn't jumping about and you peel him off the ceiling. And also when we've had bad defeats, he's also not. Everything's always, and I know people might see that as a bad thing. I quite like that he's always quite level-headed. He doesn't get too high when it's high and doesn't get too low when it's low. He knows and he understands. Even with this new deal, he said his interview. He said, "Pleased to get the new deal. I thank all the players and my staff and all the rest of it because they're the ones that got me here." And he's like, "But I'm no daft. Like, I know if results didn't go my way, I'm not in a job, so it doesn't really change anything for me. I know it's a long-term deal, but it doesn't really change much. I'm still just going into each game trying to win." And I just really like his mentality. And I mean, Scotland's in a good a place as it's ever been since the 90s anyway, I think. So, looking forward
but
to
also as well, Willie, we've got a little bit of a fallback because we're in the playoff if we don't do well and then through the Nations League. So, look, let's go. Hopefully, Hampden will be a bit of a rock in it puts, and we'll start winning. Against Cyprus, which is brilliant. And listen, the forecast isn't good tomorrow, so that's all the Cypriots don't like the wind and the rain, and it'll be a 3-0, and then roll on Spain.
I would certainly settle for that, Jed. Definitely. Here's hoping, even if it's in the rain, here's hoping the full house at Hampden is boogieing at come 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Sorry?
He's in the Celtic end, hopefully.
But me and Jude are sitting. It's slightly into the Celtic end, but it's in the south stand upstairs, up in the top deck. But yeah, if it was a cup final, it would be just into the Celtic end. I have to, for my shame, just with the fact it was the only tickets I could get. I have sat in the Rangers end a few times, and it's just no the same. There's something no right about it.
All the best, Joseph. Hope everyone comes through and hope the chemo's going well.
God bless, mate. We're all thinking of his, fingers crossed.
Get a good result tomorrow.
Yeah,
absolutely. What about yourself, Willie? Where are you sitting?
I don't actually know, to be honest with you.
Sitting in the pub, that's all it was.
You say you bought the season ticket. Are you in the same seats for the 5 games? Or are you...
Aye, but the seats, when I go to, we're part of the supporters club, so, but when I totally forgot about going and booking the ticket, so when I got in, the seats weren't great, but they are my seats for this season anyway, so I hate to get in quicker next time, but I'm out at one of the corner flags, but I can't remember which one it is.
No, ideal, mate.
Not the best seats, but I'll be half cut anyway, so.
Aye, that's it. Listen, I hope you and Susan have a great day, and hopefully the result's a good one. And that is it for us tonight, guys. Jed, it's been absolutely brilliant having you back on again. We always love to have you on. Have you enjoyed it yourself?
Yeah, I have, and just talking about the pub. Just last week before the game, I went to my oldest daughter dropped me and my youngest daughter off and in for a drink before the game to the Real McCoy, and there was a crowd of Germans over for the game. So they were
really?
and talking to them, and it was brilliant to think here's guys making a weekend, wanted to come over and watch Celtic. They got a contact, the boy come into the pub from Scotland with the tickets and that for them. Guys were, I mean, they've been to the Superstore and kitted themselves all out in the gear. So they must have spent a few £. So I thought, well done to them. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
See, we're
The
up there
worldwide appeal of the old Glasgow
Colorado.
Celtic.
Yes. Yeah.
What about yourself, Willie? Good be preparation for
brilliant.
tomorrow.
Brilliant. I love being on with Jed. I'm really pleased that he comes on every so often because he's great chat. His knowledge is brilliant, especially this. I can barely remember yesterday, never mind, 13, 14 years ago. So Jed held it all together today. Appreciate him.
Just don't ask
again.
for a golf podcast, Wally.
You know more than me.
Well, thanks again, folks, and we'll be back on Monday night. I dare say the boys will be reviewing the Scotland game from Saturday, looking ahead to the game against Spain as well, and of course, plenty Celtic content as well. And but until then, have a great weekend. Good luck to Scotland tomorrow. Stay well and keep safe. Hail, hail.
Cheers.